Are you paying over $2,000 in rent? Josh and Brian here with the Linhart team at Coldwell Banker Realty and want to talk about some rental strategies.
What does it cost to buy in Minnesota right now?
Right now, so there's a listing down the street. It's listed for $245,000. It's part of an HOA. It's 3-bed, 3-bath, and we're in Forest Lake. So at 245 with 3.5% down and a 6.5% interest rate, taxes, insurance, all figured in on this unit, you could be in it at $2,200.
$2,200. So I think that's the common misconception of going, it is going to cost me way too much to buy a house, right? So 3.5% down at $245,000 is how much in a down payment?
Like $8,800.
$8,800. So if you have $10,000, you can find a home.
Yep.
And I think from that is to go, well, why would I buy when I can rent for $2,000? Why would I spend more, little bit more, to buy a house?
Space for your dog, space for, family to come over, friends, whatever that may be, and the option to be able to grow your equity and grow your wealth by owning something versus just renting. You're paying somebody else's mortgage and building somebody else's wealth.
I think that's the number one thing really when it comes to when you rent, you probably don't have much. You might not be able to have your dogs there. I own a few rental properties and I allow dogs, and you'd be amazed how many people I get that are like, this is the only place that'll allow a dog.
Right.
So I think there's one of the big reasons is so you can have some more space. You can own something yourself, so you can change out the paint color, so you can make it your own. But I think also when it comes to the financial aspect of it is understand this, is that every month you are making a mortgage payment, the principal of your mortgage is going down. Right? Your rent is never going down.
Oh, it's just going to go up.
It probably is just going to go up, and the next time you renew your lease, it's probably a little bit higher.
Yep.
Well, luckily, that mortgage payment, that's fixed. For 30 years, you will not pay more than that now. Asterisk that a little bit. Taxes may go up a little bit, so your amount could go up a little.
Yep.
But also, you have a better chance of it just going down because you can refinance that rate.
Right.
You don't have that. If you're in your rental property for 20 years and it's $2,000 now, 20 years from now, do you think it's $2,000? No, it's not.
No.
You buy a house and it's $2,200 a month. In 20 years from now, how much do you think that's going to be? You've probably refinanced down lower. Right. It's probably even less than that.
Right.
I think that's the big thing for people to grasp, and also realize that part of that payment is going toward paying that principal. So when you go to sell that property, one, you get an equity increase, most likely, if the housing market keeps going up. Right?
Yep.
So you bought it for $245,000. In 10 years from now, right? Let's just say it's $300,000, but you bought it at 3.5% down, which is $8,800, right? So you're at $236,000, something like that, right?
Yep.
Now that in 10 years from now, you're probably going to owe $200,000 on it, right?
Yep.
You're going to have $100,000 in equity.
Right.
But now if you rent 10 years from now, how much equity do you have?
Zero.
You won't have any.
And you threw, let's say $2,000 over. You're.
If that's what is that?
448. 2 years, $48,000. You just threw out the door.
Yeah. Well, you put it into living somewhere. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But realize that is really the thing I think that gets lost a lot of times with people that rent or they buy, like, oh, it's just an expense. Well, you have an asset. You own something.
Right.
That can go up, and also you're paying it down. When it comes to rent is never going to disappear. It's never going to go down. They don't go, hey, you've been here for 20 years, you've paid enough, we're going to drop you down to zero, right? Which is exactly what happens with a mortgage. In 30 years from you starting your mortgage, it will be at zero.
Right.
That's what happens.
Right. And rent is going to do nothing but go up. And also, it's yours. It's your property to do what you want with and decorate how you want versus a landlord telling you can't paint that room whatever you want, or you can't have this there. You have that option.
Yeah, and I think that also in that you do get a ton of options is when you start to have some equity in there, you start to be able to access it.
Right.
There's things that you can do. And it's also this, like, let's say you buy that first house, you're in it for 5 years, and let's say you pay down $10,000 and it goes up $10,000, right? So you really have a forced savings there. You have $30,000. Well, now when you go to buy that next house, you have $30,000 you can put towards that next house.
Yep.
Well, if it goes from rent to renting another place, you have to save up all that money yourself. The house is a very good way to be able to get you to that step up property. It's so hard. I rarely ever see anybody get into the step up property range of the 400, 450 and up, I would say, when this is the first house they bought.
Right.
It rarely ever happens because
Right.
they have to have a substantial amount of cash, or they need to lower that mortgage payment so they can afford it. So having a house is the best way to be able to do that.
Right. And that was when my first house. I bought it when I was in college. I was working, and I had two friends come live with me. They actually paid my mortgage for me, so I lived there for free. And that was a great asset. And, after many years, I sold it and rolled that equity into another property. So,
And I think if you are renting, I think it's really important to one, understand the plan. Like how do I make this transfer from renting a house into buying a house? And I think you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, when I move into a new property, will I be able to stay there for at least 3 years?
right.
I think that understanding that if you're renting and you're moving from city to city and you might not be there for very long, it doesn't make sense for you to buy.
No, you at
Do
least
not-
want to go 24 months so you're not
At
playing
least.
capital gains.
Yes, I think that's an important piece to realize is like when you do buy, you do want to be there for a while. You want to be able to keep that property for a long time as you can.
Correct.
So ask that question first. The second one is, do you have a decent credit score?
Right.
Anything typically below 600 gets really hard to be able to finance something.
Yes.
So making sure that you're improving your credit or getting into the higher credit score ranges is going to be helpful for you to be able, one, to even be able to do it, but two, also to give you the best position possible to buy. The third thing I think you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to make that decision? Do you
Right.
have some cash on hand to be able to handle what does come up when it comes to expenses?
Right.
That is the difference of renting versus buying. You can just
repair.
call somebody to fix everything in your rental property. When it comes to owning a house, you'll have to have some excess cash on hand to be able to make those updates and improvements to the house. When looking at it from a renter's perspective is get your financing in order, is talk to a lender, make sure you can get pre-approved, and then two, put a plan together on the timeline.
Right.
Understand it takes at least 30 days to close on a property. The amount of renters I have that talk to me and they go, hey, I'm out of my lease here in 1 month. I want to buy a house. I'm like, that is too late.
We should have started 60, 90 days ago.
So my recommendation to them is always check to see if you can put yourself in a month-to-month lease.
Right.
Either that, or if you're in the middle of a term, if you can find somebody else to rent your property, your landlord will usually let you out. So those are kind of two options. Or ask them, is it okay if I move out in 60 days? I'm looking for a house. If I give you 60 days notice, is that okay? It's a strong enough rental market right now where usually landlords will be okay with that. So those are a couple of strategies to be able to help you decide between renting and buying. And if you are currently renting, comment rent down below and we'll give you our free buyer's guide to help you detail out when it makes sense for you to buy a house and how to go through the process. Completely free.